Common Core, and then there are learning targets. And if we're trying to talk about what are those consistencies for us, let's use this document for that consistency piece, as far as what will be those learning targets. That way, if there's crossover, we have the ability to make sure that it's documented in the same way. Okay? Not that you're limited to this, we're just saying that everyone will use this resource as our source. So, Mark, if you'll scroll down just a little bit, please. So on here, there are the standards. Those are the quick links to each page. So if you go to kindergarten, for example, notice that the targets are long-term targets. Okay, so the standards are meant to be the benchmarks by the end of the year that these students would be able to do. The learning targets match that. So your learning targets may be broken down, depending upon when you feel that those are developed by that grade level. Okay, so the first one's with prompting and support, and ask and answer questions about key details in a text. With support, I can ask questions about important details in a literary text. But the first one may be I can ask questions about a text. I mean, you may scaffold that, those learning targets. But we just wanted to make sure that you recognized and noticed that it said long-term targets as opposed to your daily targets. Okay? All right. Thank you, Mark. If we can go ahead and go back to the resource. Now, this one I started, there's standards and assessment and other resources that you can use. The first one is standard progressions. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is out of North Carolina. And what is nice about this is that you can determine, get there. This is a drop-down menu. So there's the reading foundations, and you can do the grade range that you want to view. And so at a quick glance, you can see the progression of standards. And you can drop down, so demonstrate understanding of the organization and basic features of print. If you go to click on any one of those show more, it gives you the details to those standards. So there's still the Common Core standards, but it's just a different view. So if it's easier to see the progression of those standards so that you're trying to really stay in the essence of that standard expectation, this is a nice document. You can also search by all the different bands of the standards. Okay. All right, and then if you, the other ones to highlight, there's priority standards. The standards in ICANN, which was that Achieve one that I just shared. Sure. This is out of Federal Way Public Schools. I stumbled upon this when I was doing assessment work for math. But what is nice is that you can see the priority standards here, and you can click on, say, let's stay with kindergarten. And then here are the priority standards. Obviously, they're going to highlight the big strands. But if you scroll down, they start to, when you get to the reading literature, they start to highlight the standards that we need to focus on. So instead of thinking about all the standards that you have to create assessments for, once you get out of the Reading Foundation standards, and if you're able to get to this point, focus on the priority standards first. Okay? All right, and then the other ones you can look at, this kindergarten mathematics running records, I just thought it was interesting how the video talks about doing the running records for mathematics, that our idea eventually is to evolve into numeracy assessment as well. Obviously, that's another big task, but it does a nice job with talking about how to do those running records. It has a nice administration user guide that maybe some of those elements, as you're thinking about how do we do running records, reading running records on here, that this might be helpful. And then the other is assessing the standards. There's 3 different ones on there. This one is just assessing standards. That's, must have done, this is under math. Go ahead and scroll down though. I wonder if it's, yeah, this was math because I think for kindergarten we had talked about if we had the possibility to get into the early numbers and numeracy, it would be important because we know how parallel those skill sets are to the success of the student. But this is just a document that as you stumble upon really good resources, feel free just to copy and paste those links in here. One, it'll be an easy... And that may be where you just even start today, is identifying some of those places. Like if you type in assessing the standards and you type in a specific standard, like FCRR has them all organized, or those lessons by standard. So that's a website that you may say, you know what, as a group, let's make sure that we go here first and maybe identify 3 key resources to go to so that you're not out there searching forever. I also included this Open Ed assessments. Now, with caution, you're going to have to evaluate whether you feel that these are meeting the needs of you and your students. But I wanted to give you that opportunity to look at how they have these assessments, because they have some multiple choice and they have some fill in the blank, and they're standards based. So it just may give you an idea of how to word something. Pam and I and Mark and Dr. DeFrance will be reading over some of your resources and materials, and we will be the common thread. We will hopefully help keep all of us on the same page, so to speak, of using the same vocabulary, having the same setup. So that's where we were saying, you know, giving you feedback and a little bit of pushback on some of your lessons. It's not going to be like a grad class and expecting perfection. But because your names are all on these documents, so to speak, we just want to make sure that it's with the intention of your thinking, okay? One of the things that we're going to lead you into is we want you to think about those things that we've listed up here and what you guys were talking about over there, what you value about assessments and data collection. And one of the things that Dr. DeFrance and I, we were having a conversation around the assessment, and she said, you know, really what we need to consider, because what Bill has said is that we're not replicating any of those assessments that are currently out there that districts are using. We're not saying you're going to use this instead of this. Although I think if it does everything that we're hoping it will do, I could see a lot of districts saying, or teachers saying, I want to use this tool because it's standards-based, and it will give me information on a daily basis as much as they use it, to drive their instruction. But one of the other things we need to think about is what is it that you teach that is so complex that it's difficult to collect data around? And making sure that we're mindful of that it's, because there are some things, some standards that are really easy just to put a question in there and collect data around. But we need to be mindful of some of them are more complex, and it's not as easy as just asking a question or two. We value teacher observation, and we value the one-on-one interaction as we're giving the assessment. So where needed in these assessment tools, there may be a course or a module that we say this is where the teacher's interacting with the student while taking the assessment. Okay, these are the look-fors. Or maybe that's captured in a video instead of assessing it. Okay.